I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with director Maite Alberdi, who, alongside producer Marcela Santibanez, just earned her first Oscar nomination for the Chilean documentary feature, The Mole Agent. Maite, congratulations on your Oscar nomination.
Thank you very much.
Talk us through, when you found out, and where were you, and what was your initial reaction when you found out you've been nominated for an Academy Award?
Well, we were with Marcela alone at my home, and the day before we read all the predictions, and we were in the last position in all the predictions. So we were like a farewell ritual, like, okay, it is. And yeah, we really don't believe that we hear the name, and it was, I think until today, like, for us, it's unbelievable. And yeah, it's weird to be nominated also in lockdown, because we are strict lockdown in Chile and our life didn't really change. So it's like we're constantly saying to us, like, we are Oscar nominees, we're Oscar, like, don't forget that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you will always be known as an Oscar nominated filmmaker, and you never know, maybe even a winner, but we'll see what happens. Are you planning on maybe attending? Can you leave Chile to attend the ceremony? What are your plans so far?
Yeah, we get an official permission for the government. Our frontiers are closed, but we get an official permission to travel. So we are going to travel with Marcela and with Sergio, the main character of the film.
Really?
That he is now 87 years old.
Oh.
And it's the first time that he take a plane in his life. And he told us, it's going to be my first trip and my last adventure. So I really want to go. And it was like, okay, you must go.
Oh, that is so wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. I just thought he was so wonderful in the film. Let's talk about that. So when the film made, by the way, the shortlist for both documentary and international feature, that in itself is quite a huge achievement. And I would imagine that it puts the pressure on you to see if you can make it to the next stage. So I was just wondering, what were your reactions when you first made it to both shortlists? Were you surprised, and then did it make you more nervous for the nomination itself?
Yeah, we were really surprised, because it was difficult to understand a campaign from the distance, and super difficult to ask. Like, the documentary campaign, we manage it more because we have a career in documentary field, but in the international, it's more open, and you really don't know who really votes. And it was more abstract in some way, that campaign. So yeah, we were really surprised, and for me it was super important as a statement that the double shortlist, like, to understand documentaries as films, like, not in a isolated category. I'm super proud to see Collective there, and because I think that it's a challenge for me as a documentary filmmaker, and I really hope that in 10 years editors of documentary can be nominated in editing. Like, I really don't understand why we are always in a separate category. I don't know. I don't understand why Alexander Nana from Collective, it's not nominated for Best Director. Like, for example, like, why not? Like, why we are always like an isolated genre? So for me, that both shortlist was like, okay, like, we are like opening frontiers of this isolation of the creation of the documentaries in the industry as a separate genre. So I think that barriers, it's something that are super important for me to break, and I love that double shortlist because of that. And if I had to choose, of course that I prefer the documentary, because it's the field that I want to continue shooting and working on, and my films are documentaries. So of course that I'm super proud to be there, but yeah, I really hope to conquer other categories in the future. Not me, but the documentaries in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken such a long time for a film not in the English language to break through, like Parasite last year. You have that barrier, and also some people incorrectly see documentaries as not being films. I mean, your film in particular has this wonderful narrative that any film would dream of having, that beautiful arc that you give these characters, even though they are in fact real people. What was so remarkable about the film for me, just as a viewer, was the tonal shift. So it started out quite light-hearted as a spy caper, and then we expect the film to become kind of an expose on elder abuse. But when did you realize that the film was going to become much, much more than that?
I think that I realized it in the shooting, because it's really start, as do you say, like from a detective story, from a film noir. In my goal to put genres from fiction in documentary, I started for that intention to make a film noir documentary, and then I find the case of the retirement home that the detective was working on. But for me, the story was completely focused on the thriller of the private detective, clues and case, and the narrative was super focused on the case and in the proofs and everything related to the case. But when the mole agents started to establish their own connections with the people and not with the case, and he started to don't be concerned about the case. And me, as a documentary filmmaker, I also started to be more committed with the people of that place, or I also start suffering with them. Like my heart was there, like the other narrative was a national and rational narrative that really worked and really moved forward. And it's like super classical in the way, and I could edit that film because I have the material for that. But it was, I was not moving by that story at the end. So my process as a documentary filmmaker at the end is the process of the film. Like that was my starting point. It's the starting point of the film, and for me it's a good excuse to enter to another world that probably if I invite audience to see a film about old people isolated in the retirement home, I don't want to see that film. But you enter with another excuse to go to deep topics that are hard. So my process as a filmmaker, it's on that narrative. But I realized during the shooting, like feeling that characters, that the heart was there.
Yeah, you're right. If I was going to watch a documentary film about elderly people and their isolation, I probably wouldn't, because everybody has elderly people in their family, in their lives, and it's uncomfortable. And there's a degree of guilt there. But your film draws us in, and then we become attached to these women and to Sergio. And I just found it so unexpectedly moving as a contemplation on how society abandons the elderly, and on loneliness that we all feel, and isolation, particularly we've felt it over the last 12 months. So why were those themes so important to you personally?
Yeah, they're important to me personally because, well, I have worked with old age in my previous film, and I feel that we always speak about old age as a group, like an homologo group, like without difference. And I see so many different ways to live old age without like a sociological like way to put them. So, and in this film, you can see people that want to have a job at their 80s, another one that want to be in love, another one that it's missing their kids, another one that it's missing her mom, another one that it's in very good health. So you cannot say like old age is like that. Like, are so many ways to live old age. And I as I say before, and you say like, I don't know if I'm going to see a film about old people abandoned, because it's the classical way to see it also. So like, why we don't look to another or diversity inside the group, and at the same time, because like in Chile, it's, well, everybody knows that like the most highest rates of suicide are from people between 80 and 90 years old because they feel alone. So, but it's a number, and you really don't you don't understand that loneliness. And when you see this film and you see their experience, you understand the numbers. So I think that my commit, it's like from the micro world to try to understand society, and to from the experience to try to understand a statistic of social issues, like from one character that can explain you that. And that isolation and loneliness, it's difficult to shoot because it's not concrete, it's like a feeling, but you see that feeling in the encounter of Sergio with that ladies, and that abstract feeling became concrete in the dialogues and in that relationship. So I think that my commit, it's like to try to understand society from micro world, and in this case, like how all people is living and feeling from individual experience.
I'm actually hoping that this film could be, even in a very small way, a catalyst for reevaluating how old age is seen by people, and pushing back on this notion that older people are somehow less essential or vital to society, or less deserving of love and dignity. And your film does that. And we've really had to deal with this over the pandemic, older people just felt like they were not essential and just disposable. Have you found that you're getting a lot of that feedback from people who have seen the film, that have reset their mindset about elderly people?
Yeah, I think that this film, when we finished it, was before pandemic, and it was a universal film. And this year started to be contingency because everybody started to ask themselves like about their parents, their grandparents, because of the distance. And when we premiered the film at Sundance before pandemic, we say to everybody, like, we really hope that after to see the film, you call your parents, you call your grandparents, and the people automatically during the lockdown started to call. And I always say, if I had shoot this film on the 2020, probably I shooted exactly the same film, because these people was already locked down in this retirement home because they were abandoned and isolated. So it was a symbolic lockdown, and they have a pandemic of the loneliness that exists before the pandemic of the pandemic. So the director of the retirement home told me, like, my life didn't change so much inside the retirement home because the funerals that I already have was without family members. I didn't have visitors. So it was like, I had a lockdown, but they were already like out of society. So who was conscious of this lockdown of all people? The one that were not there, that started to ask how much time passed without see my parents, my grandparents, and without see all people, and they start to reconnect. So I really hope that the pandemic helped to that, and I have really seen how this film helped to people to start calling, and we really see it in the audience and in the comment, how it's super small gesture, like probably it's the way to change the world for me cinema. You are going to put questions in minds, and it's a super concrete action, what the film moved you to do with that painful context.
Yeah. When I first saw the film, there was a scene, and after I saw it and cried, I was like, I hope I get to interview the director, because I want to ask her about this. And you all talk about it all the time. There's so many great characters, like Perdita with her poetry. Obviously, Sergio is amazing. Rubira. When he comforts her and says it's okay to cry, so many people that I know just said how that really, really resonated with them, and it blew me away, actually. Can you talk us through the day of when that scene came together?
Yeah, for me, that scene, when you told me, like, in which point you realized that the film was in another place, I feel that it was exactly in that scene, like, because that scene was a moment, like, when a character that Sergio create a relationship when her friends feel comfortable to cry, and it's so difficult to find someone when you, like, for me it's difficult to think in people that I feel comfortable for cry, and she find this friend, and for me it was also super touching that she feel comfortable with us too, because I was also part of that world. I have a relationship with her out of the camera, but super fluidly all the days. So for me, it was like she was like embraced from us, and in that scene, Kosakowski, the director, in a Q&A told me like that he really loved how I moved the camera like out of from the distance, but it for me was not a conscious decision. It was like the place that I feel comfortable shooting that scene. Like I cannot like go on the scene. It was like, okay, let's give her space, because at the same time I was crying shooting that. Like I could not see the monitor in that scene because I was super overwhelmed with the action. So it was not like I was not thinking and directing the DP in the frame. It was like I'm also living that experience, and it's super. And for me, I had realized that in all the scenes that the audience is touched by the film, or exactly the films that I was super like overwhelmed during the shooting and not directing any scene, like only living the experience. And in that living, yeah, the film changed for me, because I was not a director in some point, because I was like, yeah, with not the capacity to direct the crew.
Yeah. When you pan out and you've got that beautiful soft light, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a scene better than that all year. Narrative, documentary, doesn't matter. Yeah, really beautifully. So congratulations on a really successful scene. In fact, what was the key to making this film feel so organic and authentic? Because you are in there with cameras and people, and it's like as if obviously you didn't exist, and these people were being so free and open and transparent. How's the key to that?
Yeah, for me it's time and patience. Like, and I always say, like in my shootings, I defend to have a lot of times, and I go all days, in this case for 4 months and a half, like to the place all days, like 10 hours per day, and I'm there waiting and learning how to shoot the space and putting my camera in the space, not to have the best frame, because I decide where it feels okay, but it's the correct space for me to wait, and the correct space for me to make that reality to move organically without interrupt. Like I will never say action, of course, I will never say cut. Like everybody's conscious that we are there, but we are there waiting. And for me, it's not like that I'm with a production plan saying, today we are going to shoot this, because some weeks I never press rec. Like I'm always waiting, and another weeks I have like 50 hours of shooting, but it's depend of the reality. So like I always say, in my budget, like my salary, it's per weight. Like it's not like I have so many frames or so many scenes per day, not necessarily. Like some weeks I have, and some others I don't have, but it's like we take at least 3 weeks that I feel that the material doesn't work, because the first 3 weeks we are learning how to shoot that characters, we are learning how they can feel comfortable, how we can feel comfortable, we are learning to move, we are getting used to them, to the camera. So I think that it's a month at least of get used, and from them and for us, and to see, like, even if they sign a release, sometimes a character never feel comfortable with the camera. So like you start this rehearsal and learning how to shoot, and then I think that the film starts in some way. So it's super like without anxious, and only time and a lot of patience and trust that if you find a good place and you have good characters, things are going to happen. But you have to wait, like I always say, to program the chance, Like you're waiting and you know that things can happen, but yeah, you're waiting. The scene of the corridor of when she's crying, like I was sitting on the corridor as all the afternoons and she was there, and it was like I was lucky, but I was lucky because I was all the afternoons in that corridors where people pass. It's like, yeah, I can be there, but I cannot. But I pass a lot of afternoons in the same place, and I have the lucky that I was there, but and I wait in another place that nothing happened to, or I was in another place when something happened, like that. Like, yeah, it's an exercise of movement. Yeah.
Yeah, so many documentary filmmakers tell me that it's about patience and about getting into that space. But it could go so horribly wrong, and so you should be so proud, and also proud that this is really the third Chilean feature film to be nominated at the Oscars, after No and A Fantastic Woman. So you must be
And the
very
first
proud.
documentary, yeah, that is incredible.
It's amazing. So look, good luck on Oscar night,
Thank
whether you
you.
win or not.
Yeah.
Just a wonderful achievement, and congrats on a really great film. It's touched a lot of people.
Thank you very much. Thank you.